Welcome to the Strategy Story Podcast, a show for, well, basically anyone interested in those real stories of people making it happen and making a difference in work and business. We're here to bring you some seriously cutting-edge thoughts from the worlds of strategy and storytelling. So, if you're looking to improve your comms and your business story, or you want tips on leadership and culture, you're seeking strategy advice or help on leading people through change, keep listening. I'm Kate Hooper, co-founder of Strategy Story, and we are inviting you into our community. So sit back, listen up, and join in. Okay, folks, welcome. This is the very first Strategy Story podcast. What on earth is it going to be about? Well, I am Kate Hooper, co-founder of Strategy Story. Sitting alongside me is Professor Donald Maclean, the other co-founder. Donald, what are folk going to be in for?
Well, they're going to hear some stuff about strategy, some stuff about story. I think it's going to be exceptionally different from what people kind of take strategy in particular to mean. So we're really going to shake things up a bit. We are game changers, and they're going to hear different takes, all driven by research. And we're going to debunk a lot of myths about strategy and introduce some brilliant new material from story to liven strategy up a bit.
Throughout the course of the series, you're going to hear some more in-depth interviews. There'll be podcasts about 30, 40 minutes. We're going to do masterclasses in strategy and story of 5 or 10 minutes. But for today, our first program, we're just going to give you a little bit of a taster of what you can expect from some of the brilliant interviewees that we have lined up for you. Those people are Kate Buell-Armstrong, founder of Confused.com and co-founder of the Admiral Group.
And we have Colin Gray, CEO and founder of Alitu podcasting app.
Then there's Willie Cameron, director of the Cobbs Group, and Mr. Loch Ness, the Highlands and Islands character serial entrepreneur.
Carolyn Curry, chief executive of Women's Enterprise Scotland.
So then we've got Adam G, BAFTA-winning commissioning editor and producer.
And last but definitely not least, we have got Darina Garland, co-founder of Uni, the worldwide pizza oven sensation. That's the company, not Darina.
Although she's pretty sensational herself.
Absolutely.
So that's what we've got coming up for you folks. And today we're just going to give you some snippets, some little sound bites of what some of those folk have been saying, so you can get an idea of what we are going to be talking about in a little bit more detail. First up, let's hear from Kate Buell-Armstrong.
I won't say I'm a rule breaker exactly. I do live within rules and I understand where rules are, but I definitely push on the box and always have done, and have always sought opportunity to allow me to do that. So I went into consultancy in the end, which is a great way of getting exposure to lots of different companies doing lots of different interesting things.
I know that clip is really going to chime with our professor of strategy there, because that's his kind of strategy, isn't it, Donald?
Yeah, and we should just, reveal this, that I was privileged to supervise Kate's PhD. And it's actually slightly ironic because that was about a rules-based perspective on strategic management. She just said there that she likes to bend and push rules. She's a total visionary, exceptionally capable. I can't wait to hear more of what Kate's got to say.
So we'll hear a little bit more about that balance of trying new things, but keeping everything in order, how that works in business. All right, so that's a little bit about strategy, but of course we're Strategy Story. So story is a big part of what we do. You're going to find out a lot more about that. Let's hear from Colin Gray, CEO, founder of Alitu, podcasting app, podcast company. What did he have to say?
I mean, I think the thing that we do, you mentioned earlier, we try to help anyone get their voice out into the world. And the whole point of that, when we're talking to a business audience, which I think we are here, is to personalize what you do so that, if you're a plumber out there doing your great work, or you're a baker making great bread, there's lots of other plumbers and bakers out there, but people will buy into your bread or your plumbing service if they know the person behind it.
This podcast is produced in association with Alitu. Alitu is a one-stop shop podcast maker tool offering co-recording, audio cleanup, audio editing, and publishing. If you want to start your own podcast, just like this one, go over to alitu.com. That's ALITU.com and try it out for a week for free to see if it works for you. It did for us.
It's the voice, the humanity, the personality, the ethos, the beliefs, all of those things that come out in your voice. And that's what podcasting can do. So that's what I would say is even just experiment with it. Just try and put out a little limited series of 6 episodes teaching something that you know well.
So that's a coincidence because that's just what we're doing, isn't it? It's our little experiment. We want to know what you all think. Big thing there that Colin was saying, though, it's all about people, folks. You're going to get so much of this from us. Donald, what are you saying?
Well, I'm just the other thing that Colin says, it completely changed with me is the power of the human voice. The voice just combines what's going on inside us, our physicality, absolutely everything comes through in our voice. So if there's a person-to-person contact, I think the voice is absolutely key, and it's brilliant to hear Colin say that.
So good to hear Colin say it, and it applies inside an organisation, giving voice to your folks so you can develop your strategies in a way that actually works. And it also applies for getting that story out there about your business as well. It's got to be authentic and it's got to be about that real voice. So do a lot more about that as the season progresses. And somebody, yes, Donald, he's got his hand up. He wants to say something.
The other thing I want to say there is that, the term storytelling, we often talk about story, but in actual fact, it's the telling is so important. Like a good voice can make an okay story really compelling, and a really rubbishy voice can make a great story dull as ditch water. So how stories are told and the voice is absolutely key.
Which is an amazing segue into our next clip, Donald. That was like so spontaneous and random, and I know you don't really know what's coming up. So anyway, our next clip is Willie Cameron, who is Highlands and Islands based storyteller. Mr. Loch Ness, what did he have to say about story?
I am still a great believer in teaching the best people within your organisation how to deliver your story, how to present your story, present your case, present your product. It's a very, very much a learning process that they get the story right, they get the story concise, a bit of humour involved in it too, to make it that little bit more attractive one way or another. And also, I'm a great believer in the delivery of the story, the way it's put. It has got to be theatrical. It can't be just da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Boring, totally boring.
Brilliant, Willie. Yeah, that is so good to hear. And, another slightly provocative insight, I've spent a lot of time teaching in business schools. We need more theatrical stuff in business schools. How you tell your story, how you get your thing across, how you lead is as much a performance as anything else. I want to see us doing acting courses, voice courses, how to sing properly. All that has to be woven into business schools eventually if we are to get ourselves into the 21st century.
Wow, for me, it sounds like that might be a long way off, Donald. I've never heard that one before. Acting and singing lessons in business school.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. And by the way, I'm not speaking from a completely ideas based. I've tried some of the stuff with people. The effect it has on their ability to express themselves and get ideas across and lead people is jaw-dropping. Well, he's a natural at it, without a doubt. But a lot of it can be trained and taught, as we know in the arts.
Wow, well, that is very true. I do definitely agree with that. And I think that whole thing, leadership, is about storytelling. It's about capturing the hearts and minds of the people that work with you. That's what it's all about. And we are going to explore a lot more about that throughout the course of this series. I think this is where Carolyn Curry, the Chief Exec of Women's Enterprise Scotland, is really good in talking about the power of story to grab folk for really important causes. So let's hear what she had to say.
Well, I really like that phrase, grabbing hold of people. That's exactly what storytelling does, I think. From our perspective, it really helps to bring alive the data, the research, and the facts that we talk about. You know, that there is nothing as impactful as telling a story that evidences that landscape that the research paints.
There you go. Leadership, inspiring, doing it all through storytelling, giving voice to folk, understanding what's really going on. That's what it's all about for us.
I'd just like to make it clear that we're advocating grabbing hold of people in a non-contact kind of way.
I can just imagine all the complaints coming in now.
And stories do that. Stories do that. Of course they grab hold, they draw you in. It's like a fire.
It's like a fire. They draw you in. And there's an art to storytelling, as we've talked about. Bards trained for years. There's program makers out there. There's filmmakers. There's content makers. There's people, which is why the stuff Adam G, BAFTA-winning commissioning editor, was saying to us really resonated. Because what is the first rule of good storytelling, Donald?
Know your audience.
Hooray! It's know your audience.
That's only taken 6 years, Kate.
We've got there, though, finally, for our podcast series. Hooray. Let's hear what Adam had to say.
The things that are useful to sort of carry over from media, I suppose, you know, the most important thing is the central and really quite, in a way, simple to express skill of being able to see communications from the point of view of the receiver of the communications. And you'd think that's simple, and you'd think most kind of professionals in all sorts of disciplines would be well attuned to that, but my experience is they're not at all. So you get lots of use of jargon, lots of arguments that don't land quite right because, you know, the point of view of the audience is not fully understood.
So there we go. And I think he brings up a really good point there as well. A lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is not rocket science, but it's just a reminder of how people communicate and the things that we maybe need to think about when we're crafting stories or we're trying to reach people. There are steps to it. There's a bit of preparation required.
Sorry, Kate, it's so interesting what Adam says there. For a long time, I was guided by Robert Burns's line, the best laid schemes of mice and men gang after clay. That was kind of a big part of what I did with strategy. But since I've been working with you and we're more and more into story, the other line that keeps coming back to me is, would some power the gift he gives to see ourselves as others see us? Because I think that's what it's all about. You can't really connect with people unless you are somehow or other capable of adopting their point of view of things. It's just what it's all about. And story is actually one of the ways in which human beings do that.
This is going to be so important for our podcasting. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions about strategy, your questions about story, your observations about what you hear. Let's create a conversation here, folks. So you can email us at hello@strategystory.co.uk. What was that email address, Donald?
hello@strategystory.co.uk. You caught me slightly distracted there because I was interested in the sensorial acrobatics of observations about what you hear.
Sensorial acrobatics.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm going to spend the next hour trying to work that one out. So there you go, folks. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavour of what we have in store for you and with you. Be in touch with us, please. There's going to be masterclasses in strategy and story. There's going to be interesting interviews. There's going to be some random conversation, and we would love you to be part of it.
Okay, folks. So if this sounds up your street, our very first episode is already out and available for you to listen. If you want to make sure you catch all our episodes as they're released, follow or subscribe to the Strategy Story Podcast on your favourite app now, so you don't miss out.
Thank you for joining us here at the Strategy Story Podcast. You can listen to this podcast anywhere they're available. You'll also find all the links and resources mentioned in the show notes below. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all our episodes.